guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would do a little chatty video about A-levels, trying to offer you some advice, talking about my experience, because I know a lot of you are starting really soon, either today, tomorrow, sometime this week, so I feel like now is a good time for me to talk about this. I have just finished my A-levels. I'm going to university this September, so I feel like now is a good time for me to give you some advice because it's all still fresh in my head and I've literally just finished. So I actually asked you on Instagram to send me in some questions about A-levels and I'm going to go through and answer them. Before we get into this video, it is worth saying that this advice is going to be more general in this video. I got a lot of questions about how I revise for specific subjects, and I've actually already done in-depth videos about how I revised all three of my A-level subjects. So I will have them all listed down below in the description. I've also already done a video about timetables and how I planned out when I was going to study, so I'll link that down below as well. And also, finally, a lot of the questions were about UCAS, university, personal statements, and I've decided that I'm going to do a whole separate video about that, hopefully sometime in September, so I'm not going to be talking about anything like that in this video. Okay, so I feel like this question is a good place to start, and is, how did you know what A-levels to pick? So there are different ways of going about picking your A-levels, I think. The way that I did it is I chose my A-levels based on the subjects that I enjoyed most at GCSE. At the end of year 11, at the start of year 12, I didn't know what degree I wanted to do at university yet. I had a vague idea. I thought I wanted to do history. Obviously now I'm doing business management, so quite different, but I just picked the subjects that I enjoyed the most because I wasn't sure. But if you do know what degree that you want to do for definite, say you want to do medicine or courses like that that require specific A-levels, then obviously you'll need to pick those A-levels. But if you are unsure, most of the time, unless it's a specific university course like medicine or things like that, then they won't really mind what A-levels you have. For example, I'm doing business management and I took English literature, history and biology. I didn't take business. Okay, so the next question is doing 4 A-levels doable? So I can't really speak from experience here because obviously I only have 3 A-levels, I don't have 4, but a few people that I know did 4 A-levels. So my friend Amaya, she did 4 A-levels, and I'd say it definitely is doable. Universities only look for 3 A-levels when you're applying, so it's definitely not necessary to do 4, but I think if you're like Amaya and she just did 4 because she enjoyed the subjects, then yeah, I think it's doable if you enjoy them. But doing 4 for the sake of it, I'm not sure, because obviously A-levels are a lot of work. So having a whole nother subject, I cannot imagine having a whole nother subject on top of that, but it definitely is doable. Quite a few people did it in my sixth form, so. Okay, the next question is, how shall I mentally prepare myself for the hell that is the next 2 years? Okay, I feel like A-levels have a really sort of negative image around them, if you know what I mean, but I feel like it's all about having a positive mindset. You will prepare yourself best by not talking yourself into it and not calling it hell or all these things before you've even started. So just try and think about the fact that so many people across the country do A-levels every single year and survive. I've done them. Like, so many people go through them and so many people come out the other side completely fine. I survived. Yes, it wasn't a nice experience, but you've just got to keep positive. It's never gonna be fun, but it doesn't need to be negative and it doesn't need to be a bad time. So I'd say how to prepare best for it is just go in with the right mindset and things will just fall into place if you're looking at it the right way, if that makes sense. Okay, the next one is how to handle the first few months. I'd say my #1 piece of advice for the first few months, because they are daunting, is just go with the flow. Yes, it is going to be different to GCSEs. It's not going to be like anything that you're used to, but just go with the flow. Just try and embrace all the changes and try and adapt to them instead of stressing, instead of being like, oh my god, I can't do it. Just sort of take it all in, go with the flow, just adapt how you work, adapt your week, what you're used to basically, because it is going to be different, especially in the first couple months. I remember being very daunted, especially in the first week, being like, oh my god, how am I going to do this? But honestly, as the weeks go by, if you just embrace what's coming your way and you just go with the flow of it, then things will start to fall into place and you will get used to it. The next question is it really that hard, or are they just stressing us about it and making a big deal? Okay, so I feel like I've already kind of covered this, but yes, A-levels are hard. There is no sugarcoating it. No one has ever said they're easy unless you're like Einstein or you're super clever. Yes, they're hard, but also they're only as hard as you make them for yourself, if you know what I mean. If, as I said, like you embrace them and you go with the flow and you keep on top of your work, you keep organised, you revise when you should, then no, they won't be hard because you'll have done the work. And I feel like with A-levels you can't really breeze through without doing any work. What you get out of it is what you've put into it. So if you work hard, then they're going to be less hard, if that makes sense, because you will have put the work into it. So yes and no is the answer to that question. With schools stressing about it and making it seem like a massive deal, there is an element of truth in that, but obviously they do kind of want to scare you as well into working really hard. But I'd kind of ignore what they're saying because A-levels are very much what you make of them. Okay, next question is how to handle having more than one teacher for one subject. So I had this for pretty much every subject, I think, especially in year 12. I had 2 biology teachers, I had 2 English teachers, and I actually had 3 history teachers, but it's definitely not anything to be worried about. Teachers do talk to each other, so they'll plan lessons around each other, so there'll never really be any repeats or anything, or there shouldn't be. But also it's just really easy to manage as long as you keep yourself organised. So as long as you look at your timetable every morning and be like, okay, I have this teacher, so I need to bring in this folder, or I need to bring in this piece of homework. It is very manageable. It's just getting used to it, because I know at GCSEs or lower down in school you don't really have that, but it's just about keeping organised, making sure that you're bringing the right thing on the right day. But apart from that, you've got nothing to worry about. Okay, next, how different is it from GCSE? Right, so I think it's different in a lot of ways really. There's the obvious things like the fact that you do less subjects, you have more content in those subjects, you have different teachers, it's slightly different teaching style, but also I think one of the main things, it's socially very different. During the course of A-levels, you all turn into adults. Obviously you legally turn 18, but also people change so much during A-levels. Not necessarily because of A-levels, but just because you get to that age where like independence comes in. I think personally that was one of the things that I found most different from GCSE, because everyone really grows up, and that can either be in a good way or a bad way, and people definitely change over A-levels. Once again, not necessarily because of A-levels, it can be because of that, but just generally people grow up, people change. So yes, it's different in an academic sense, but also very much in a social sense. But I'm only speaking from experience there. It might not be like that for everyone. But sort of following on from that, the next question is there more pressure than GCSEs? Yes and no. I feel like with GCSEs you are very much spoon-fed and you are sort of like given everything, and teachers are constantly there to motivate you. And at A-levels it's a lot more independent, because at the end of the day, if you don't get the grades that you want, then it's going to be your university place that is affected, it's going to be your future essentially. So I feel like actually at A-level there is a lot more personal pressure, maybe not pressure from teachers and things like that. Obviously there is going to be pressure from teachers, but at the end of the day you are basically turning into adults while doing your A-levels, so it's not really their job anymore to tell you to revise and tell you to hand in your stuff on time. It becomes very much your responsibility. So yes, there is a lot of pressure at A-level, but it's a different kind of pressure to GCSE. Okay, so the next question is, what do you do if the A-levels that you picked are hard? And I also got a few more questions being like, what do you do if you don't like your A-level subjects? And I don't really know what the answer to this is. I can only speak from what other people around me did, but one of the main things that I'd say, especially if you're in year 12, is don't judge it too quickly. I feel like especially in the first few months at A-levels, it's so different to GCSE, and it can be really overwhelming that people skip to conclusions really easily. And one of the main things that I try and remember is that A-levels aren't supposed to be easy. If your subject is hard, guaranteed every other A-level subject is also hard. I don't think any particular subject is easier than another. I did a pretty broad range of subjects and they were all hard in their own ways. I don't know, it's difficult because obviously if you're not enjoying your subject, then that is a problem. And if you know that you're not enjoying it after a couple months, then definitely try and change it. But if you're just finding it hard, then I'd say that that's natural, especially in the first couple months of A-levels. So next question is, how do you use your frees wisely? Okay, so I feel like I definitely messed around in my frees, especially in year 12. I spent the majority of time talking to my friends, and guaranteed I had a great social life, but it definitely did not benefit me academically at all. So I'd say literally from the get-go in year 12, make sure that you're using them productively. In year 12, you can definitely get away with not using all of your frees productively, but as long as you are using the majority of them productively, then that's fine. In year 13, you should definitely be using them all productively because you do not have time to waste. But yeah, I'd say it's best to probably do your homework in that time. That's what I found worked best for me. If I did my homework at school, then when I got home, I could revise, I could see friends, do all that sort of thing. Okay, I also got a lot of questions about how to keep on top of the work, how to get on top of the work if you're not on it already. And I don't feel like there is any real trick to this. I can't really give you any like wow advice about this, but all you can really do is do the work. You just have to do it. You can't get around it. And also with keeping on top of it at A-level, it's just best to do it as soon as you can, because say on Monday you get given 2 pieces of homework, then you've got 2 pieces of homework to do. But then if you leave it until like Friday, you might have 10 pieces of homework to do, and that's when it really starts to build up. Whereas if you just did the bits that you had on Monday, then they'd be out of the way, and then on Tuesday you just did the bits that you had, and then by Friday you might only have 1 piece to do or 2 pieces to do. So it's just a case of doing the work as and when you can, and also making sure that you use the time that you have. So if you have frees, doing your homework in those is an absolute lifesaver, because then it means you have to do less at home. And yeah, I also got a lot of questions about how to keep yourself motivated while studying, and once again I feel like this is a thing that's all about mindset. If you go in with a positive mindset and you know what you're working towards, you have a goal in mind, then I think it's quite easy to keep motivated. Of course there's going to be times where you don't want to revise and you don't want to do it. I had that a lot, especially during exam season, but just keep reminding yourself of what you want to achieve, why you're there. In year 12, obviously you might not have an exact goal because you don't know what uni you want to go to, you don't know what you want to do in the future, but have personal goals, whether that be a grade, whether that be learning something. It doesn't have to be a specific number or anything or a letter. It can just be, oh, I'm really interested in this subject and that's why I want to learn about it. But also just remind yourself it's only 2 years at the end of the day. It's not that long, and trust me, it flies by. I don't even know where my A-levels went, but it's not that long, so just try and stick it out. And honestly, if you put the work in now, trust me, the reward will be so good at the end of it, and you will just thank yourself that you did the work when you did. Okay, the next question sort of links on from that, and is how to deal with burnout at crucial points in the year. Burnout is something that I definitely struggled with during A-levels, and I feel like my main piece of advice is it doesn't matter how crucial a point in the year it is, take a step back and have a break, because honestly, ruining your mental health over exams is never ever worth it, trust me. And I know this is easier said than done, especially if it's in the middle of an exam season, but if you feel yourself burning out, the best thing that you can do is just take a break. There is honestly no point, and you will achieve nothing in just pushing through and just especially at the expense of your mental health. So take a break, take a step back, try and evaluate it from a different perspective, because it is so easy to get sucked into A-levels and sucked into exam season. Like, trust me, been there, done that. But your mental health is so much more important than that. So if you feel yourself burning out, just take a break and you will come back 10 times more motivated. And especially if you're feeling unmotivated, I found that if I don't have the energy, if I don't have the motivation, then I'm not going to absorb anything that I'm learning, and you're just wasting your time really. So it's better to just have a break, and then when you come back to revising or doing whatever work you're doing, you will be 10 times more productive, trust me. Okay, this is one of the main questions that I got, and I do not blame you, and it is how to deal with the amount of content. Once again, I don't think there's any real solution to this. It's just a case of keeping on top of everything. So literally from the get-go, this is my advice. I did not do this, so this is what I'm telling you to. From the get-go, keep all your notes organised and start making revision resources from the start as soon as you can, basically, because honestly, you will thank yourself so much, because 2 years isn't a lot of time. So if you muck about in first year, then you basically have double the amount of revision to do in second year. So if you're just making revision resources as you go along, you're keeping your notes organised. When it comes to exam season or mocks or anything like that, it will just be so much easier, and it will be so much less stressful because you'll just have it all there. You will have done half the work already, basically, so all you need to do is then go back over it, and because you've already done all of the content already in some format or another, it will come back a lot quicker as well. So okay, the next question is, when did you start revising for your actual exams? And I started revising hardcore probably at the start of April. That is when I made my first proper revision timetable, and I feel like that was a good place to start. However, I feel like you could really start earlier than that if you wanted to, and if I had my time again, I definitely would start earlier than that, because I was mainly doing biology in April for some reason, which did work out well in terms of my biology revision. But I personally started revising hardcore at the start of April, but I feel like probably midway through March is a good place to start. Okay, the next question is, how do you balance work, study, sleep, job, social life? Help. I feel you, honestly. Balance was one of the things that I definitely struggled with most during my A-levels, and I've spoken about this in other videos, and I don't feel like there is any real solution. You can't balance all those things perfectly because it is just impossible. I mean, some people probably can, but I certainly can't. I mean, if you're really struggling, then I'd say making a timetable is a great way to sort of visualize everything. So sort of timetabling in when you are at school, when you want to see your friends, when your job is, when you have like hobbies and stuff. That is a great way to sort of see it and stop stressing about it, because you know that you're going to fit everything in because you've physically already fit it in, if that makes sense. But the next question is, how often would you suggest revising throughout the year, especially in second year? So my advice for this is consistently make revision resources throughout the 2 years, because that will honestly, as I've said before, save you when it comes to exams. So I'd revise consistently in that sense, because making revision resources is effectively revision in itself. Yes, it's obviously not the most effective, but you are going over the content by doing it. So my advice would be do that consistently over the 2 years, and then when it comes to end of topic tests, mock exams, all those kind of things, then revise for those using those revision resources. That's how I did it. Not at the start, I mean I was a bit messy at the start, but that is how I'd recommend doing it. Okay, and finally the last question now is, how did you find being head girl as well as doing your A-levels? And I'm going to speak about head girl here, but this applies to any sort of extracurricular commitment that you have. It doesn't have to be head girl, and personally I found it manageable, but it is a case of managing your time well and being self-disciplined as well. Things like head girl, leadership positions, extracurricular things, they require a lot of sort of internal deadlines. You have to sort of set deadlines for yourself. You have to sort of be like, okay, so I've got this plan for a meeting that I need to write out, but I can only really I need to do it within 2 hours or so, because then I need to get on with my A-level revision and things like that. So It's self-discipline and time management, but if you really want to do it, then definitely do it, because obviously it teaches you skills like that, and it's definitely worth doing other things alongside your A-levels, because when you come to apply to university, things like that look great on your UCAS personal statement. Obviously I'm not talking about that in this video, but yeah, I definitely recommend doing it. Okay, so this video turned out a lot longer than I expected it to be, but I hope that this was helpful to you in some way, and if you did enjoy it, then make sure to give it a like, subscribe, and follow my social media down below in the description. And good luck for A-levels, you will be fine, I promise. Bye guys.